Hello, 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 and welcome. This is Her Talk Show. My name is Sabrina Victoria, and I am here with Stephanie Martino. I am so excited. We're going to be talking about how to go from stuck to strong. The power of owning your decisions. Girl, I needed this podcast like friggin' 20 years ago as far as just owning my decisions. I don't know why this was such an epiphany for me back when I was in my probably late 20s, but I'm like, oh my gosh, I can actually decide what I want to do. What? So I'm going to assume I'm not the only one. Anyways, if you're listening live, welcome. If you're listening on the replay, make sure you hashtag replay wherever you're at. We're going to go ahead and jump in. Let's roll.
Get ready, because today's guest is about to change the way you view your world. This is Her Talk Show, hosted by Sabrina Victoria.
Here every day, we delve deep into the realms of health, wealth, and leadership with some of the most brilliant women globally. We've interviewed over 600 women. I'm pretty sure the number's close to 700 at this point. I need to do a recount. Today, we're adding another one to the list, though. We have Stephanie. She is a speaker and mindset coach who empowers women to unlock their potential by taking ownership of their decisions through her coaching, keynotes, and workshops. She guides women to embrace accountability, turn setbacks into opportunities for growth, and move forward with purpose. Her work inspires individuals to confront limiting beliefs and confidently pursue a life aligned with her true purpose. Welcome, lady.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here, and I've already enjoyed our pre-podcast conversation, so I'm sure this is going to be awesome.
Yes, lady. That little hiccup there was because my little scrolly wasn't working. For those of you that watch this podcast on the regular, I don't just have this stuff memorized. There are scripts that I follow on the screen, and it wasn't scrolling the way it was supposed to. So anyways, I'm super excited about this. I'm assuming you have a story.
Well, don't we all, right? So I think this idea of owning your decisions is something that, well, I had to learn the hard way, as a lot of us do. And once I learned it, it was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, right? And I don't know if it always has to be that we have to go through something hard to learn this, but it was definitely my situation. So I had a situation in my life where I was actually dating someone that ended up not having same values as me. And it ended up being like this, like we were missing, but I didn't realize that at first because he lied to me about it. And over the 4 years that we were together, yes, it took me that long to figure this out. I finally realized, like, yeah, no, this isn't, something doesn't feel right. We were even engaged and had bought a house together, and I wasn't planning the wedding. And I was like, this is kind of weird. Like, why am I not planning the wedding? Right? There was something like in the back of my head. And so I really started having, to think deeper about this. I started talking to a counselor. And what I realized is that I was not owning my decisions about this. I was just going along with what I thought maybe I was supposed to do or I should do, obviously there were good things about this person or else I wouldn't have been with him. And I just kind of kept making excuses for the things that weren't working. And so when I finally got clear on what my true values were and are, and realized that this was not a match, I finally owned that power that I rightly have and that responsibility to own that decision and make the hard decision, which now I am thankful every day that I did, because I did find the partner that I am definitely my soulmate. I believe God put us together, and we've been married. It'll be 10 years next year. So that was just a situation in my life that it was hard. It made me look more closely at what I was doing and what I valued. And I think I needed that in order to really understand that, no, I have to take control and responsibility for it.
You might have already said this, but how old were you?
Oh God, at that time, I think I was 34 4-ish. I had been married previously, was divorced, and then, this was a relationship that I was in for about, like I said, 4 years before I finally said, nope, I'm out.
Totally get that, 100%. When you were kind of coming to this realization, was this a an epiphany that happened in real time, or was this an epiphany that happened maybe a few years afterwards and then you realized? How did that work
Oh,
for
no,
you?
it was real time.
That's awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there were, like I said, I was going to a counselor because I do feel like it's very helpful to have these
Totally.
conversations with someone else, especially someone that's not part of your life, because they're going to have their biases. We all do. So that was very helpful. She was able to challenge me and help me to look at things from that perspective of what truly is important to me. So as I went through that process, I just started getting more and more clear on it. And then as things happened kind of between us, this guy and myself, then I saw them differently. And then I was able to point them out and be like, yeah, no, that's not good for me. That's not a fit for me. And so, yeah, it was definitely real time for sure.
That's awesome. I know you talk a lot about things in our life that happen to us. And a lot of times we can feel as if, right? It's like going against us. I always used to say, I feel like the universe hates me. I feel like the universe doesn't want me to succeed. And you talk a lot about how life is happening for us. I'd love for you to explain that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my, I guess, mantras that I have held on to for years is this idea of choosing your perspective. If something happens, and we've seen this with, eyewitness reports and all kinds of things, something happens and 10 people experience that thing that happens, but they all see it differently. Someone's looking at it from this perspective, and someone else is looking at it from their perspective. And that perspective is based on a lot of things, our biases, our limiting beliefs, the way we grew up. And so we're looking at these things that happen in life from one perspective. And that is just part of the story. And when we can actually take the perspective of someone else, right? Even when we're in a situation where we have a disagreement with someone or things of that nature, being able to try to look at it from their perspective gives a new appreciation. So choosing your perspective, I think, allows you to then see that and take control of this idea that life is actually happening for me because I get to choose how I respond to it. Instead of saying, oh, life sucks, the universe hates me, right? All this stuff's happening to me. Yeah, all that stuff may be happening, but what you do with it, how you respond to it is where it's either happening to you or for you. I believe we can all learn and grow from everything that happens to us. And that's where it's that perspective of, I'm going to choose to look at this from the perspective of, how is this shaping me?
Absolutely. And I see you have here setbacks, turn setbacks into set ups. I love that.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Great
And
visual.
again, that's a perspective shift. Who doesn't have setbacks in their life? I'd like to know. Does anyone
Mm,
not have setbacks? So what we do with it is the difference maker.
yeah, definitely. I want to ask, in real life, right? Like this all sounds so fine and dandy,
Right.
right? We've got a ton of people watching live right now. Some of them are in a good place and some of them are in a not so good place, right? And they're thinking to themselves, Stephanie, good on you. Look at you with your cute little hairdo. Mm. Talking about setbacks to set
Right.
ups. You
Mhm.
don't even know, girl. That's what they're saying. You don't even know.
Right. Yeah. Nope. I get
Your
that.
story's nothing compared to my story.
Mhm.
So when we're in the darkest of times
Mhm.
and we're supposed to be reframing our setbacks into set ups, how does somebody do this?
Yeah.
Are we
Yeah.
allowed to be mad and sad and cry? Are we just supposed to like shove it all down and just show up strong? What
Mhm.
is the steps that somebody is supposed to start to learn to take, right? This isn't just like we listen to a podcast with Stephanie and then all of a sudden we're healed, right? What are some steps that somebody should start to learn to take in order to switch this in during the exact dark time in the middle of it?
Yeah. Yeah. That is a great, very real question. And I want to be very clear that just because I'm saying, oh, yes, I can choose that life is happening for me, does not mean that I do that perfectly. And there are times where it certainly feels like life is just happening to us. You know, there are situations we get ourselves into because we did something, right? We caused it. There are other things that happen to us that we had no control over whatsoever, right? In that situation, life is truly happening to us. I think the steps that I've found helpful is in that moment when you are mad, when you are sad, angry, all the feelings, those are valid. We are human and we're not going to not have those feelings. Recognizing that, yes, this is awful. I don't understand why this is happening. But what could I learn from this? How could I grow from this? I'll just share an experience, an example from my own life. I went through, infertility. My first husband and I, we got married. I was 19 when we got married. And in my mind, I was like, well, we're going to get married in a couple of years. We're going to have kids and bada bing, right? That's just what was going to happen. And that wasn't happening. I was not able to get pregnant. And so then I was like, okay, well, we'll just go to the fertility specialist. And again, it'll just happen. And this was probably back in like 1996, 97, right? And back then infertility wasn't talked about
Totally.
openly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So went to the fertility specialist, went through all the treatments, nothing ever happened, never got pregnant, didn't even get pregnant, right? There was no even opportunity. And I went through years of pain from that. I struggled because, of course, all my friends were getting pregnant and I was going to baby showers and, and on Mother's Day, it's like, you're supposed to be so happy, but you're like, this is just a reminder that I'm not a mother, right? And so that was hard. And obviously I didn't do anything to cause that. It just was happening. And it took me years to get to the point where I was finally able to surrender that and just be like, okay, maybe I'm not going to have children. So now what can my life look like? Because up to that point, I didn't have any idea of a future without children. Like that's what my life was going to be. Get married, you have kids. And at first I was like, well, I don't even know how can I even, what does my life look like? Can my life even be fulfilling if I don't have children? And so I had to choose to look at it from now another perspective. Like, okay, well, how can I learn from this? I tell you one thing I learned from it is I am so compassionate towards women who have gone through that or are going through that. I get the feelings. I get the anger, the jealousy, all of that can come up that I wasn't allowed to talk about back then because I didn't know anybody that was going through that, right? I held all that guilt for feeling that way. So I think it's just this idea of like, yes, we're going to go through hard things and it's not pretending like it's not hard. Yes, it's hard. It's awful. It's hurtful. It's painful. But I believe there is always something within those hard things that we can learn something about ourselves. We can discover that we actually have more strength than we ever realized that we had.
Yeah.
And now I can be there for other people. I can sympathize, empathize. I can comfort them. I can be a listening, understanding, non-judgmental ear because I've been through it. And there's a lot of power in that. I mean, if we all think about the times where someone has really understood us, like a painful experience that we're going through, and there's someone that says, I've been through that. Like, yeah, it sucks.
Absolutely.
That is powerful, right? And so to me, that is what part of the life happening for us, that we get to be there for other people. Life is not just about me, right? What I want, making me happy. It's also about the impact that I'm able to make on other people. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I love that. That's one of the things that I've really adopted is the thought process of storytelling. When I'm going through stuff at this point, not always.
Mhm, mhm,
Sabrina definitely lived a very long life in victimhood.
mhm.
But now when stuff happens, challenges arise, I'm very much in the mindset of this is going to make a great inspirational story. Like I get so excited. In 2020, I lost I lost my whole everything closed down. I was doing door-to-door sales. And so everything was face to face. 2020 comes, I lose everything. All my money, everything is stopped. That's March, April-ish, right? October, a few months later, I'm starting to get into online business. I'm trying to do some education, trying to figure it out. I'm finally like getting my bearings going. That's how my community was started. It was started out of COVID. Um, October 2020, right? Just when I'm like finally starting to like, okay, I think I'm understanding. I think I can make something. Blah, blah, blah. I'm walking down the freaking sidewalk and I snap my leg in half. I just fall over. I just fall over. We're on a family walk. I'm walking.
Oh, God.
My son, who's now 20, is on a unicycle. My fiance at the time, who I'm no longer with, was on rollerblades and I am walking. And I fall off the sidewalk and literally snap my whole
Mm,
leg in half.
mm,
Yeah. So all the things that go along with the broken leg, plus all the money, right? Insurance covered it, but they didn't cover freaking all of it.
mhm,
And the mindset that I had,
mhm.
I couldn't even make it up. I was like, dude, this is amazing. Like, what a badass story is this gonna be when I freaking finally come out of this? It's COVID. I lost everything. My freaking
Mhm.
leg breaks while I'm walking down the sidewalk. Like, what is going
Right.
on right now? And I use that story all the time. And when
Mhm,
we can get to this side that Stephanie's talking about, right? It takes time, ladies. It
mhm,
takes time to
mhm.
get what Stephanie's talking about. But when you finally really start to create the healing process for yourself, it is so powerful on this side.
Mhm. 100%. And I love this about this is going to be an amazing story. I love that attitude because seriously, when we look back on things, yeah, in the moment, and maybe it was like, oh, this is horrible. But later we look back and we're like, oh my God, can you believe this happened to me? And we can laugh about it and whatever. So I love that. I mean, but that's a great attitude to choose in the moment too. Like, this is going to be a great story one day.
Absolutely.
Mhm. Yeah.
Absolutely. And a lot of it is why Her Nation Global, the community that I run, is where it is right now because people did start to go back to work. People did start right towards 2021, which is right where we're at. We're at October, right? So coming January, I could have been not really doing that well and just ended up back in corporate somehow, or what I was
Mhm.
doing. I wasn't really in corporate. But because my leg was broke, I had to sit in bed. I couldn't
Yeah.
go anywhere or do anything. So I was
Mhm.
forced to sit in bed. And I'm like, how am I going to make money? So
Mhm.
the empire that I now have, I am so grateful for the broken leg now because it literally more than likely wouldn't have been because I would have gone reverted back to what I knew best.
Mhm.
I knew nothing about online business. You know,
Right.
I was struggling really bad in the beginning. So I want to
Yeah,
talk a
I mean,
little
it's
bit. Oh, go
super
ahead.
easy.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mhm. Yeah, I was gonna say it's really super easy for us to, like you said, want to revert back to what we know, the familiar. I call it the uncomfortable comfort zone, because a lot of times we may not like it, we may be uncomfortable in the situation, but we know what to expect, and so then we stay in that instead of taking that leap of faith. And so, like you said, in that situation, you didn't have a choice. You had to figure it out because you couldn't go back to work. So, I mean, what an amazing story now
Yeah.
that you're able to look back on. And we wouldn't be here talking today probably if that hadn't happened. So
For
I'm so
real.
glad you broke your leg.
For real. That's a real statement right there. I know that you talk a lot about belief systems.
Mhm.
First of all, what is a belief system?
Mhm. Mhm. Well, when you think about just the word belief, it's just saying that you think this thing is true. You just accept something to be true. And this can be good and bad. When we understand, so two of the things I talk about a lot is our values, really understanding what our values are. So if I really know what's most important to me, how I want to show up as a person, and I can explain that, then I believe that, right? And then um, influences and directs how I show up in life. But we can also have these limiting beliefs, the beliefs that are like, well, I'm not good enough for this, or oh, I probably won't be successful at that, or people don't like me, right? All the things. Oh, I'm too old for this, I'm too young for that. There are a million limiting beliefs out there. And when we believe that, it's like we put on these glasses, and that's how we see life, right? Oh, I'm not good enough. So now what I'm seeing is anything that will um, prove that to be right, right? Because our brain wants to prove these things to be correct. And so when things happen in life, now we're like, oh, see, that
Mm.
didn't work out. I'm not good enough. Oh, see, that person didn't say hi to me. People don't like me, right? So we look for these things to prove this limiting belief. The problem is there's so many other things that are happening that prove just the opposite, but we've got
Totally.
these glasses on.
Yeah.
So understanding, like being aware of what those beliefs are is a first step, right? We got to acknowledge we have them. We all have them. What are yours? And then understand how that influences how you look at life. And we have to challenge them. I always use the analogy of like put a little stop sign up in your head. Once you catch yourself having that thought, once you know you have that thought, now you can be aware of it. Next time you have that thought, oh, stop sign. Nope, stop. And now I'm going to reroute it to a more empowering, true belief. And that takes a lot of honesty and
Mm.
vulnerability because sometimes we don't want to admit that maybe we are having a little pity party or right?
What?
We all have them. I mean, you know what? We just got to admit it. We're human. We have
Yeah.
those things. But it's like, okay, I'm going to have a little pity party. Let's just back it on up a little bit, Stephanie, and let's see what's really happening here. Look at it from that other perspective. Did that person really mean to ignore me? Probably not. And if they did, well, then maybe something's going on in their life, whatever. So our beliefs are so important, but I don't know that we all really take the time to truly understand what our beliefs are, what
Mm.
our values are.
Mm.
And I really always encourage people, especially in my group coaching program, we do a whole section on understanding what your values are. And
Oh,
I
boy.
actually, there's a list. I'll have a list of like, hey, select some values that you think are important to you, but I want you to take it a couple steps further. You need to explain what that value means to you.
Mm.
Don't just pick a word. What does that mean to you? What does it look like to live in alignment with that? How does it feel when you don't live in alignment with that? When you really go to that level and that depth of understanding what your values are, then it becomes more real to you. And then you can show up that way more confidently. And
Yeah.
then the limiting beliefs, we have to take that initiative and do the work to challenge them, to break them down, to take out the all or nothing black or white statements. Oh, nobody likes me. Oh, nobody likes you. Okay, that's an exaggeration, right? So doing that work, and again, that's something that we work on in some depth in my group coaching program.
That's awesome. I remember I finally did my value system for myself. We should always have one, especially for business owners. We should have one for ourselves and our business, which I did not know. But I did my personal one, I don't know, 3 years ago, something like that. And one of the things that I really appreciated about the coach that I worked with is there was so many words. And when I first was doing this, I'm like, this is low key, so overwhelming. And the reason why is because there was like 5 of the same word. I just jotted a few down. Like one of them was like health, fitness, and wellness. They all mean the same thing. So I'm sitting here like, I don't freaking know. But what Stephanie is talking about is, what does it mean to you? Right? So those words, although like in general mean the same thing, there are certain words that resonate with each one of us differently. One of them is stronger, weaker. It encompasses more than the other words. So knowing, I guess, the specificity of how vast the English, or how vast language is, right? We're not just talking to English speakers here. How vast language is, to really recognizing how we speak, the words that resonate directly with us, and how we've been raised.
Absolutely. I mean, you could call your value watermelon if you want, as long as you know what that means to you. It doesn't really matter. Just know what it means to you. Right.
Absolutely. That's great. I love this conversation around limiting beliefs. I definitely did so much work myself around things that kind of, what you were saying, it's like, I didn't even know I had them. I didn't even know that I had these things that were kind of keeping me from blooming or blossoming into the real person that I was supposed to be, and still dealing with it. Because we're so ingrained in the society or the atmosphere of which we've grown up in, we don't even necessarily recognize that our thoughts aren't our thoughts.
Absolutely. Right. And I think that's where, again, when people are looking at things from certain perspectives, their perspective is influenced by these things: how you were raised, the messages you received, the experiences you had. They all shaped your thinking in some form or fashion. And that's how you're looking at life. Somebody else had completely different experiences. They're looking at that same situation from a different perspective. The situation's the same. So who's right? Well, both and neither, right? I think it's just about recognizing that we all have different experiences in life, different and or same, sometimes limiting beliefs, and how it impacts how we view life, how we interact with others. And that's really where it comes back to this idea of like owning your decisions, taking that responsibility for how you think of things, understanding that just because I think of a certain situation a certain way doesn't mean I'm right. Somebody else can think of that situation completely differently. And I have to own that I'm not always right, or that there are other ways of looking at things, there are other opinions. But I also have to then own the responsibility for my decisions, of how I live my life, the decisions I make, because not every decision we make is going to turn out great. Sometimes we are going to make bad decisions. And this is one of my, I guess you could say, pet peeves, and one that I learned from my own experience, right? We all say like, oh, I made a mistake.
Okay.
Well, was it a mistake or was it a bad decision? Bad decision is where we're owning it. I have done things in my life that I knew what I was doing was the wrong thing, and I did it anyway. That's not a mistake. That's a bad decision.
That's great.
Yeah. And when I own it, it actually builds my confidence.
100.
Because if I'm like, oh, I made a mistake. Oh, I made a mistake, right? It's like, it's just weak thing. Like, oh, I don't have any responsibility for it. Whereas I'm like, no, I actually made a bad decision, and I own that, and I learn from it. And now I can go forward in my life more confident in making decisions that I know are the best for me. That fires me up so much. I just wish, I've heard that question before. If there's one thing that the entire world could do differently, what would it be? Like, that would be my thing. Like, just own the responsibility for your decisions. Own it. Own it.
I love that. And again, to what Stephanie is saying here, I think it's important to recognize that this is a process My healing journey is long and vast, and I've been doing podcasts for years at this point. I've been on almost 200 podcasts. And when I first started telling my story, my dark story, right? I have a dark story of I got pregnant and I wasn't married and my parents were very religious and they kicked me out and I was a sinner. And I led this very stereotypical, dark, broke single mom life of just like nothingness, dirt on the ground because I'm such a sinner. And I always and I still do tell the story like that sometimes. But there was a podcast that I was on one day and I had like an epiphany during the podcast of I always tell this story of like my parents disowned me. I lost my entire community. Everyone left me. That's all true. But on this podcast, which I tell this story now all the time in this manner, is I knew I was having sex.
Yeah.
Like I was having sex before marriage. I was not using protection on top of it. And I knew that having sex in that religion would or could end me being what's called disfellowshipped, disassociated. So it's not like, what?
Yeah.
What is going on? Which is the way that I had told the story up to that point, right? I'm in the middle of my healing journey. I'm starting to talk about my story. I'm starting to use it to inspire people. Like, look at me. I went through this thing and now I'm here and it's fantastic. But then the healing continues. And then all of a sudden I'm like, dude, I freaking knew what was going on. Like, I'm not oblivious to what happens when you have sex. I'm not oblivious to the rules in the religion that I was in, right? So to what Stephanie is saying, the power now and to be able to just fully be like, yeah, dude, I just made a bad decision, as you just said. And owning that, the power in that is priceless. I love it.
Absolutely. And you know what? Everyone has made bad decisions. That's the other thing. I feel like some people are like, oh, I don't want to say that. You're human. Humans make bad decisions. That's all. Like that's part of being human. Learn from it.
Yeah.
Learn from it. That's
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely. That's great. As we're closing up here, kind of wrapping things up, I'd love for you to talk a little bit just to kind of close up this limiting belief conversation that we're having here. I know that you have a story around corporate America to entrepreneurship, and how you kind of thought you were always going to be in corporate in your shift. How were you able to finally kind of get rid of that limiting belief and then like scared, fearful, maybe step into entrepreneurship? Tell us a little bit about that as we're kind of wrapping up.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I just figured I would be in corporate America my entire life. I mean, that was just what I was going to do. I kind of like my idea of like, I'm going to get married and have kids. Well, I'm going to just have a job for my entire life. That was just what I envisioned. And in fact, there were times when maybe people would say like, oh, start your own business. I'm like, oh, no, that's too risky. No, not for me. But throughout several years of my corporate journey, I always felt like there was something more I was meant to do, something different. And I had a great job, worked with great people. You know, there was no complaints, but it's not filling me up in here. Like I felt like there was something more I was meant to do. And so through several years, I went through this process of just praying and researching and taking all the assessments and all the things, just trying to figure out what am I supposed to do in life. And through a series of events, an opportunity came to me where I was able to get involved in more of this coach. I didn't call it coaching at the time. I was like, oh, no, this is not coaching, but it was. And so I got an opportunity to be involved in that and started a podcast and started taking people through a process of being able to apply personal development concepts to their lives. And I found that I loved it. I mean, it just fired me up. I'm like, this is what I meant to do. And because it fired me up so much, it gave me the courage to say, okay, well, maybe I should maybe I should start a business. Maybe this is something I could do. Yes, it was scary. Yes, it was hard. All the things, but I've also learned that anything worth doing in life, there's going to be some fear in it, because there's uncertainty. You're doing something new, right? You have to learn. You have to like go through failure. Like failure, I learned to expect there to be failure and not take it personal, right? To be like, okay, well, how many times did Thomas Edison try to invent the light bulb before he succeeded? Okay, well, thank goodness he didn't give up. So that really helped, again, a mindset shift of like, you know what, there's going to be failures. I'm going to have fear. These are to be expected, right? That doesn't mean I should stop. That doesn't mean this isn't for me. I just have to continue pushing through it and having faith that if I continue doing the work, that there will be a reward from it, right? And that reward is not just for me. It's the impact that I'm able to make by my coaching and speaking, because that again is what it fills me up. And I am so much more fulfilled as a person now than I was in my job corporate job.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. Well, this has been fabulous. I took a ton of notes. I so appreciate you being here, hanging out with us. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about obviously we're getting a good idea of what you do, but what exactly do you do? And who should be reaching out to you? Who do you help?
Absolutely. So my main target audience, I guess, for what I do is kind of like the former me, women who are in maybe a corporate environment that feel that there is something more they're meant to do. I know there are a lot of people out there right now that are losing their jobs because of all the corporate restructuring, and now they have to figure out something else. So being able to use that opportunity or that seemingly setback as an opportunity to say, okay, well, what do I want to do next? What is my greater purpose? And that's what I really focus on, is helping women discover what that greater purpose is. What is that bigger impact that they're able to make in the world, and then be able to make decisions that are aligned with it. So if that's you, the women that are watching, that there's something more you feel like you're meant to do, but you don't know, maybe you don't know what, maybe you don't know how to go about it. Maybe you're scared. Maybe there's the uncertainty, all the things. I was there. Like, I get that. And I've also gone through processes and procedures myself to be able to start working through it and feeling the effects and the reward from it. So I have my group coaching program. It's a 14-week virtual program. It's called Get Unstuck and Live Your Purpose. And it is in depth. I have a workbook. You're going to work, because I don't want you just coming to my coaching and being like, oh, that was nice. No, I want you to come and be like, okay, that changed my life, right? Absolutely. I'm going to look at life differently now. So I do make you work. But it's 14 weeks in depth. It's a group. We come together with the group once a week. You're able to share what you're learning, hear what other people are learning, process the questions, the fear, the insecurity, all the different things. And through this process, at the end of it, have this new awareness of who you are as a person, what is truly important to you, what you value. You have the tools to challenge those limiting beliefs, because they're going to keep coming up. They don't just go away, but now you'll have the tools to challenge them, and you will have a deeper sense of a greater purpose for your life and how you use that purpose in all areas of your life. I'm so passionate about it, if you can't tell, because I've lived it, and I want other women to be able to experience that as well.
That's awesome. We have Adrienne Davis here. She says, I went through Stephanie's program. I can vouch for how life-changing it is. Such a great experience. I love that. Right on cue, Adrienne. Thank you. We have a ton of people watching live. So For those of you that are watching live, we would appreciate if you follow, like, and share this video. This is the type of stuff that we go over here at Her Nation Global, Her Talk Show. We're making sure that individuals are on the up and up when it comes to how to lead a healthier life that's mentally, emotionally, and all the things. Stephanie, where can people find you? Where do you hang out?
I'm very active on Facebook. I know I'm old school. They say that's for old people, but whatever. I love Facebook. I feel like it's much more engaging and interactive. So you can find me there. I have a business page, Stephanie Martino Coaching, but also on my personal page, I do a lot on there. I'm also on Instagram and LinkedIn. So for those corporate gals out there that want to connect that way, I'm on LinkedIn as well. So I would say those are Facebook and LinkedIn are probably the biggest ones.
Under your full name here, Stephanie Martino?
Stephanie Martino is LinkedIn and Facebook. For Instagram, I believe it's S Martino. I have to go back and look what I'm called, but I think if you search my name, it comes up.
Oh, okay. So as long as you search it, then it'll populate. Okay, yeah, Stephanie Martino under LinkedIn for sure. I just found you. All right. Well, this has been great. I so appreciate you being here, hanging out. Any closing thoughts as we wrap up?
Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm so honored to be here amongst the almost 700 other women that have been on this program. I've watched several of your other interviews as well and love what you're doing. So I guess just, final thoughts for me is if any of this, for the women that are watching, if any of this resonated with you, I would love to have a chat. Just reach out. We can have a call. And if there's a way that I can support you, I would love to do that, whether it's one-on-one coaching, group coaching. I have a virtual women's community called Rooted. So I would just love to have that chat and be able to see where we can connect and support one another. So
I love that. Did you ever watch that show about like giving up everything for 90 days and making $1 million?
No.
Oh, there's a company that was created, and during that show, it was a woman who like gave up her whole email list, her whole social media, everything. They just dropped her off in the middle of some humdrum town in like Oklahoma or something. And she started a company called Rooted.
Oh,
It was health and it was health and wellness. It was like a smaller town where they didn't have like any health organic stuff. So she created like a mobile company called Rooted, where she would sell health and wellness shots and drinks and stuff from a mobile truck. I don't know. It's kind of funny, but it was every time you say it, I'm like, oh, that's so fun.
Yeah. I'll have
it's
to
a
look
good
that
name.
up. Yeah.
It's a good name.
It is. And for my group, just so people understand, because I know there are a lot of different Rooted things out there. My community is really, it's faith-centered. And again, women who are wanting to cultivate a deeper faith so that they can stand firm and even flourish when they're navigating all the things in life. So that's when I started just recently, and I'm really excited about where that can go. So all this information can be found on my website as well, stephaniemartinocoaching.com.
I love that. I found you on Insta. It's Smartino. Oh my God. It is Smartino.
Yeah.
Okay, let me put that in
Martino.
But if you do just Google her name, it does show up. Fine. Also.
Awesome.
Okay, let me see if I can put this on here. Let's see how savvy Sabrina is. Oh, get it. Look at this savviness. Oh, yes.
All right. Okay.
Oh, she be so savvy. All right, Stephanie. Well, this has been fantastic. I so appreciate you coming on, being real with us, sharing some inspiration, some stories on how we can do it differently, right? We don't have to be doing the same thing we've been doing. We can change it up a little bit. We can grow up. We can mature. We can pivot, refocus, become a different person, step into a different, more empowering identity.
Yeah.
So this has been great. Thank you for hanging out. Her Talk Show is here. My name is Sabrina Victoria. For those of you that don't know, To our dedicated listeners, again, who have made it all the way to the end here, we love you. Be sure to follow, like, and share. And as always, join Her Nation Global if you have not already. It is in a clickable link in the description below, wherever you are watching us at, along with Stephanie. Stephanie's link is also down below, stephaniemartinocoaching.com. And then as far as her social media, Facebook, Insta, and LinkedIn, in that order, is where she's hanging out. So until next time, as always, oh, wait, we have some comments popping up. Ooh, okay. We have thanks, Stephanie and Sabrina. Girl, you welcome. This was so good. I love it. All right.